When Eric became a member of the exercise gym, he paid a one-time fee of $185. He then had to pay $47.80 per month. So far, Eric has paid a total of $471.80, not including tax. What is the number of months for which Eric paid? The first thing we need to do, warriors, is go ahead and underline the question. What is the number of months for which Eric paid? Okay? Now let's go back through the problem to figure out all the information we need to solve it. First of all, we do need to know that he had to pay a one-time fee of $185. So go ahead and circle that. Okay? Then we also need to know that he had to pay $47.80 per month. Now, that word per refers to an operation that we have to do. If I said, for example, I had to pay $3 per pair of socks. So if I wanted 2 pairs of socks, I would do 2 times 3. So per means to multiply. Okay, so put a little multiplication symbol over the per. And it says, so far, Eric has paid a total of $471.80. We need to know that total of $471.80. Okay? Also, total means there's going to be an equal sign. And I learned that this week in Miss Dean's class. Okay? So, in other words, we're going to have to write out an equation to figure out the answer, how many months that he paid for. So he paid a total of $471.80. So we're going to go equal, because total means we're going to need an equal sign, 471.80. Okay? And on this side, we know that he had to pay $47.80 per month. So that means we're going to multiply $47.80, times X. And then this last part says that he had a one-time fee of $185. So we're going to add that $185. Okay? So now we actually have a two-step equation. And you all know that to solve an equation, you use inverse operation. In other words, the opposite of the operation. And you always, since this is a two-step equation, you're going to solve it in 2 steps. The first step is to undo addition or subtraction. Now right here we're adding $175. So the opposite of adding $175 is, I hope you said it, subtracting. I cannot write my 8s. Subtracting $185. And we're going to do that on both sides. So we're going to subtract 185 here. And we got to subtract 185 over here to keep the equation balanced. We're going to add a decimal and 2 zeros. Okay? Now, right here, positive 185 and minus 185 is going to give us 0. So we're left with the $47.80. X. And then we're going to say equal. Now over here, let's do the math. Since we are doing a 7th grade problem, 7th graders have the advantage, as well as 8th graders, to use calculators. Okay? So this is what you would do if you were taking the test. 471.80 minus 185 equals. So that's a total of, where's my, okay, $286.80. Okay? Now, we did the first step. The first step was to undo addition or subtraction. The second step is to undo multiplication or division. Well, we have 47.80x, so that means we have to, instead of multiply by 4780, we have to divide both sides by 4780. Because whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other side. Okay? These cancel out, leaving our x by itself, which is what we wanted to do, was to isolate our variable so that we can determine the number of months that he paid. And on the other side, let me clear out the calculator. I have $286.80 divided by $47.80 equals 6. So our answer to the question is actually 6. In other words, it says, what is the number of months for which Eric paid? Eric actually paid for 6 months already. So in our gridded response, okay, this is very careful. Everybody make sure you look at this. When you're working on an assessment, FCAT for example, and you have this gridded response box, you cannot start right in the middle, okay? That's a no-no. We did all that work for nothing if we put our answer right here, okay? So you can either start it from here on this side or this side. Now, if you notice this first little box right here, that's a negative sign. This is actually a 7th or 8th grade gridded response box that they can use if they have a negative number, a negative answer. So let's go ahead and just put the 6 here. Okay? You have to write the number in the box as well as bubble it in. So count down. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bubble your answer in completely. That is a must. Okay? The last step in this is to put our answer in a complete sentence. It says, what is the number of months for which Eric paid? Our sentence will be, Eric paid for 6 months. Period. And we are done.